everyone, my name is Emily Rudy. I am a senior ecology, evolution, and organismal biology major, and today I'll be presenting on the Tayta Hills warty frog. The scientific name is Caulina dewita. So currently, the diagnosis for this species is critically endangered. Some important phenotypic characteristics include the coloration, so it's variable between light and dark brown, which you can see on this first slide. Oh, it's not letting me go back. Oh well. But the picture on the first slide of the first frog is dark brown with white warts on it, and then also it can be gray and then have variations of orange and yellow, as you can see here on the right in this frog. Their toe arrangement, they have hind feet that are arranged in two opposable groups and point backwards. You can kind of see it on this individual who's holding the frog's thumb, the way that their toes point backwards. They also clearly have a warty skin texture, and males typically have a larger tympanum than females, which I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but it's typically, the tympanum is behind the eye. It's not as noticeable and prominent of a circle as that of a bullfrog, but it is there. These are medium-sized frogs. Their average weight is between 5 to 8 grams. However, these frogs are very understudied, and so that's a very generalized average for them. Females are larger than males, and they typically reach about 55 millimeters in length, while males reach about 35 millimeters in length. And as I said, the IUCN currently lists the species as critically endangered. It was last assessed on July 25th, 2014, and the scope of the assessment is global, not just an isolated population. And then the overall population trend is decreasing. So moving on to their taxonomy, their class is Amphibia, their order is Anura, and their family is Brevicipitidae. Currently, I could not find an up-to-date phylogeny because the taxonomy has kind of been up in the air and changing a lot during the recent years. And this is because Brevicipitidae was formerly thought to be a subfamily of the family Microhylidae, which are the narrowmouth frogs. However, recently scientists and biologists have stated that Brevicipitidae deserves to be their own family and should be recognized as its own family taxon, which are the rain frogs. The closest sister family are the shovel-nosed frogs, which are the Hemipsodidae. The full taxonomy is Kingdom Animalia, phylum Chordata, class Amphibia, order Anura, and family Brevicipitidae, genus Caulina, and then species Caulina dewita. As far as their global distribution is concerned, I have some satellite images here. I'm sorry, the picture of my face is kind of cutting off the bottom one. But this map shows you where the animal is found using the green, there's a legend right here, using the green space right here shows the resident. And like I said earlier, the species is very understudied, which is why there's only 1 point observation noted on this map. But this is their geographical range. On this bottom gray line map, you can see this range is in the Taita Aveda forest and hills of the forest. For their habitat, they are found in the Taita Hills of Kenya. They are restricted to the Dawido and the Mbololo parts of the forest. There have been some efforts from researchers to try and find the species in the Segal and Kasaigo blocks. However, they have not been successful in finding the species there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not there. They just don't have any records of it being there yet. Their preferences for their habitat are moist and wet leaf litter and decomposing tree bark, logs, branches, you name it, they love it. These species are also found on low-hanging tree branches close to the forest floor, and at night is when these species typically hunt the most and catch prey, so they will sit on shrubs and branches to catch insects. And they also, if they're not just under leaf litter, like to bury themselves in moist mud. As far as their diet is concerned, their main food source are insects. However, something that's interesting about this species is that they can be cannibalistic. They are found to eat literally everything they come into contact with, including each other. So some of the photos of the species I have here are the longhorn beetle, the robber fly, the black and white root maggot fly, and the black vine weevil. And these are all photos taken of insects actually in the Taita Hills in Kenya. Some fun facts about these frogs is that their calls are a very fast burr sound, and the highest frequency actually reaches up to 1.6 kilohertz. It's compared to a high-pitched clapping sound. I was trying to embed the sound into my PowerPoint, but it kept not working. It kept sounding really weird, so I'm just going to do it for you. They kind of sound like this, if that helps. They are nocturnal. They burrow in the mud, like I already said, and leaf litter during the day, and then climb trees and shrubs at night to catch prey. They're also solitary, which means they live alone, and they only interact with other frogs during courtship, mating, and breeding season. They also walk on their hind limbs at times. This is something that's really interesting. Instead of the typical jumping movement that most frogs do, for short periods of time, they can walk on their hind limbs. And then another interesting color morph they have, you can see different types of these frogs having their inner legs, groins, and armpits being red in coloration. The first means of impairment is forest fragmentation from eucalyptus plantations. This is because in Kenya, eucalyptus is one of the most successful hardwood tree plant species to use. It accounts for 10% of the entire tree plantation establishment, which might not sound like a lot, but for one species, that's a lot of percentage to occupy as far as growth for economic gain in the country. The next species of means of impairment is forest fragmentation for pine forests. And this is because pine forests are very fast growing in Kenya. They have super high quality timber that's great for economic value, and a lot of commercial forestry industries and companies prefer this species because of those reasons. The last means of impairment is inbreeding. And obviously, when you have habitat degradation and fragmentation, lots of species get cut off, their populations become isolated, which results in inbreeding between those populations, leading to reduced heterozygosity, deleterious allele fixation, and overall population decline. And this is just a photo right here of a frog species that has a genetic mutation. Its foot appendage is non-existent, basically, except for this little tiny toe right there. But with this habitat degradation, forcing these populations to become isolated, that is what's causing inbreeding and creating mutations in this frog species, causing it to not live as long and to ultimately die. As far as their population viability is concerned, unfortunately, the data from the IUCN is very insufficient, and they say this themselves on their website and on many other websites and articles that I found looking at the Taita Hills warty frog. So we don't know an exact number. I searched high and low, far and wide, trying to find just a general number and could not find anything on a general population size because we truly don't know how many of these species are left. With that being said, they are very rare because of their population being so fragmented, and 50% of the remaining population is distributed between different parts of the Taita forest, causing it to be rare. So this is just a little map that shows, again, the distribution of the frog. However, we don't know the full population of the species. So moving on to recovery efforts. One super interesting thing and something that's great to see in places like Kenya is protecting of forest patches, as well as creating government protected areas that are designated for key biodiversity. And so the Dawida Biodiversity Conservation Group is a group in Kenya who has 13 different constituent groups. They have all of these resources trying to educate people, inform people, and fight for more protected regions of biodiversity that are supported by the government. However, because of Kenya's economic status and the large role that these wood plantations play for their economy, these areas are listed as protected, but they can still be interrupted by fuel wood harvestings from locals. The second recovery effort is that Kenya has marked several different eucalyptus and pine plantations to be converted back to the original indigenous forests that the frogs once lived in. The Forest Service is in negotiation with these companies that log these trees and trying to convert different sectors where growth isn't as high as what it used to be, so the economic value isn't as great as what it could be, so that these frogs can have their original habitat they're supposed to be in. And this is just a little news article that I found. So not only are they trying to convert forests back, but on August 25th, the government of Kenya issued a directive to the Nyayo T-Zone Development Corporation to stop further plantation of the contentious eucalyptus trees in the 11,000 hectare zone, which is really great to see that they're preventing more plantations from popping up and fragmenting the habitat even further. And then the last recovery effort is research. With any endangered species, we probably need to research it more. And something that's an issue for the Taita Hills warty frog is that we don't understand its life history biology nearly enough. And so the government has launched different research projects to better understand the biology of life history. So their efforts in doing this are to try and better understand how to cultivate breeding in captivity. And then once they figured out how to breed these frogs in captivity, keep their heterozygosity up, they would like to restock the Taita Hills forest. And this is a long-term strategy, obviously. So my slogan for this is, I'm going to pronounce this wrong on purpose just for the sake of rhyming, but thank the breves, thank the trees, and safeguard the Taita. So breves, Brevipedidae, which is the family that these frogs belong to. Thank the trees, get rid of them, convert them back to the old forests, keep new plantations from popping up, and in turn, safeguard the Taita Hills warty frog. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you learned something.